Welcome to the podcast. My guest is Olga Kostina, and I will introduce her and tell you why she's here, why we're going to be talking to her. But I want to kind of dive into this message you sent to me on February 24th. It was in the morning hours, and I'll just kind of read and we'll kind of get into what we're doing. I put out, "Hey, are you okay?" You responded, "Well, we keep calm. 5 a.m. was loud. A building is hit 350 meters from where we are living. Booming quite loud. Once in a while, there are pics of destroyed Russian tanks online in places on the circular road around the city that I recognize. Trying to get out of the city wouldn't be smart right now. Looks like Russian military is already around it. So we just stay home and listen to Enigma." And that 10 kilos of cat food a couple of weeks ago, good job, me. So Olga, obviously we're talking about in the hours when Russian military began their advance on all of Ukraine. And at the time you were living in Kharkiv. So you're like 30 or 40 miles from the Russian border. So you're like the first major city that kind of catches the full brunt of this whole, we'll call it, second invasion. I'll let you pick it up from
we
there.
are like the very northern part of it. So basically the highway that passes right by our apartment building is the highway to the Russian border. It's even called after the Russian city.
There's a direct road from.
Yeah, and the guys starting driving, something heavy started driving past our house, and we could hear it right after, in the first hours after we woke up from that first.
Was it early morning? It was early morning, right?
It was early morning, and it was an artillery strike, and I jumped up and said oh fuck, and then I said, Misha's my husband, and Misha says it's a freaking artillery strike. He says maybe it's something else. I don't know, Misha, it's a freaking artillery strike.
Okay, so who is Olga? So Olga, I met Olga 7 years ago, in February of 2015. So she is an interpreter, and at the time, kind of a freelance interpreter. So I was part of I call it a journalism exchange program. It was through an NGO sponsored by the U.S. State Department. We exchanged journalists from Ukraine, and so journalists came to the TV station I was working at the time here in the United States, and I went to Ukraine. And this was about 6 or 7 or 8 month project over the course of that year. And Olga was my interpreter. She was my ear. She was my voice. And, when you got somebody in your head all the time, you kind of get to know that person. So that's who Olga is. Yep. Olga has got her master's from Kharkiv National University. And then you spent a year at the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire.
Yeah.
And
nobody knows where it is, probably.
Well, we've heard it.
Well, you're the neighbors. You probably heard.
Yeah, I'm neighbors. I know where Eau Claire is, so we can, if we have time, we'll get to how you ended up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So all right, so that's who Olga is, and I've known Olga, for a long time, and we've talked off and on, and we haven't seen each other personally since 2015, but I stay in touch on what you're going on. So let's kind of pick up our story. Kharkiv, the attack occurred that morning, and I know we had literally spoken a week before, I think.
Yep.
We did a Zoom call, and you were sharpening up your LinkedIn program. You're working on your resume. And
good old times.
Yeah, good old times. Yeah, back in the day when it was kind of boring. When we were trying to find the next job. Now you're just trying to find a home and stay alive. So anyway, so when I talked to you then, we had the big Russian military buildup there, and I asked you, "Are you concerned?" And you were like, not. I didn't get a sense that you were concerned then.
Well, I was not concerned. We were concerned, but we were determined because we have had this discussion in my family over and over, and we stocked up on food. My husband was laughing at me a little bit because I was sending him to a grocery store to buy those canned foods for the pantry extra, and all the cat food. Remember, I boasted at how I ordered a big bag of cat food just in case, because and it really proved useful. So yeah, we made our decision. We understood that this can happen, but also many things can happen. It might not happen. So what do we do?
you
We
were
decided not to
preparing.
run away.
You were preparing for it, but you weren't.
Yep.
It was just kind of in case type thing. Okay, so
we were not panicking. We made our decision, and we decided to stick with it for now and prepare for whatever may come.
So the shells started landing, and as you said, oh fuck, it started. You know, there's no better word to explain it when you start hearing that thunder. And I've never been through that situation, and obviously neither have you that I know of. And so it's just, but you instantly knew what was going on.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to miss, if it's an artillery strike, it's pretty much very well recognizable.
Yeah.
You cannot really confuse it with anything.
It rattles your building and rattles everything else, I guess.
It's pretty loud. Yeah. It's pretty loud. And then the same day, a building was hit right in my neighborhood. So, and I could all see the photos on all those, like neighborhoods. We have, I don't know if they're popular in the US now. We have those Telegram chats. Telegram is one of the messengers, and there are like neighborhood chats.
Опять, короче, район где-то то ли парк Шевченко, то ли... О, летит, блядь! Сука! Твою мать! Пизда, блядь! Ёбаные суки, блядь!
That's people just like kind of post stuff about the neighborhood, and you have like your school chat. So I was like checking the city chat. So I was checking all of my chats, and the building is hit like next door, and then boom, somebody's posting destroyed Russian equipment. Remember, I sent you those pics, and they were like 200 meters, basically like a couple yards from my building. I'm like, oh well.
And this time you're just hunkered down. You had not left your apartment. It
was not a smart choice to be leaving our apartment because it was loud, and we could hear like the highway is pretty much next door, so we could hear heavy stuff driving on the highway, and we could hear. So basically, my emergency plan was, I thought it was gonna be either I kind of, just like your leadership, I thought if they are going to launch the invasion, we are going to be occupied in 3 days probably. I didn't really, just like American leadership, that was the prognosis, and so I thought we will sit quiet, and then probably we'll sit quiet for a couple of months, and then we'll be occupied, and then I will get out west somehow, and my husband will probably have to get out through Russia because he's a Russian citizen. That's an extra, a little extra chair on top to our situation. So and then we'll reunite somewhere in the world, and we'll see how it goes. So that was my kind of prediction of what's going to happen.
Well, and in the early stages, it was kind of like it's going to be over with in 3 days and a week. How's the Ukrainian military going to hold up? But I tell you what, they've held up. I mean, it's been a bloody siege on both sides, but I think the Ukrainian military and your citizens, your fellow citizens, that you have proved, that you can fight against a big army like that. So you were in Kharkiv for 12 days, and then at some point you made a run for it. I guess is a run. I mean, you went to Poltava.
Evacuated. I would say evacuated is a good
evacuated.
Word for that. We
just
miraculously evacuated.
With everything that you could shove into some suitcases and backpacks, right? I mean, that's all you could do.
Basically, if you look at the map of where we are kind of like, we are still technically part of the city, but we are kind of look more like a small town separated from the city by like 2 forests. That's why we moved here, because I like forests. And basically, and we are in the very north, so there were barely any like evacuation. Like from the downtown, you could like go to the railway station, pick a taxi, and like, if it was there were evacuation trains, so you could go somewhere. But from where we were, it was pretty much you would have to find somebody who would take you out if you don't have a car. If you remember, I'm not a car person. I'm like walking and biking, and I don't know. That's just how we are in Europe most of the time. So unless you had a car, and we didn't. you would have to find somebody to come pick you up. And it's like the most dangerous part of the town where like those guys were sometimes really like, you could see Russian motor vehicles parking next door and you could say, they will be destroyed right here. And maybe they will hit my building.
And that's one thing, I don't think in America, a lot of people, most everybody has a car in some form or fashion,
Yeah.
unless you live like in a giant, big
In a big
metropolitan
city.
city. But for the most part, Americans
That's where
have
I
that.
live.
Yeah.
My city is like 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So, and also my husband being a Russian citizen, still he has a residence permit in Ukraine. He has lived here for 6 years, but still, you can imagine checkpoints. It's a war. There are military people with guns at the checkpoints. And in case they're angry because they're rightfully so, because there's some Russians killed their friend that day. And in case they're angry and because here we have a Russian guy, let's shoot him.
Yeah.
And nobody would, it's the war. So my husband has said, like, I'm not afraid of that, but I'm afraid that they will kill you.
Yeah, I know you've traveled to Russia, before all this started, and you have friends, you have family, so there's that interconnectivity to some degree. So that's.
I would say that this has suffered a lot, and we get the official statistics from like Russian, like to what extent they support the war, and it is quite high. So we have not friends, but like we have people who have not contacted us since February 24th, we consider friends from Russia because they're afraid. We had only one relative who said, like, sheesh, I'm so ashamed. I cannot live with myself with that.
This is just shattered relationships that you had before.
Well, they if that's what if that's their choice, if that was their choice, I guess that those relationships were not so valuable after all. Apparently, if that's what that's how they chose to behave. We had friends who actually contacted us despite being afraid, but we also had like relatives who did not even ask us how we were, and they knew that we were under the direct fire.
Yeah, well, so, that's a whole nother discussion of kind of what's going on culturally with that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you went to Poltava. That's where your grandmother's at. Took your cat along with you.
Yeah, we took our cat along with us.
I did take the cat. So you were in Poltava for several weeks, or for several months, I guess, right?
It was several weeks, more like
several weeks.
Months,
So and now you are. I'm talking to you from Germany. You had long Germany. So tell me about you. So at the point you were in Poltava.
Yep.
And you decided, look, it's getting crowded here. You need to make a living. You got to earn. I mean, you got to provide for yourself and in your family and stuff like that. I've got to go to Europe. I've got to make this journey. So that was not an easy decision. Was it? Tell me about the challenge of doing that.
I mean, Europe is really, really helping us right now. I mean, they have really opened their arms to civilians. They made it still paperwork hell, of course, when you get there, and it's probably even harder for people who have never traveled or who have never been abroad. But still, if you go to Europe, you will not be left homeless. They will settle you in a camp or elsewhere. So, but yeah, what I basically did was sat there and we helped my grandma with her garden, with her vegetable garden for a while. And then we decided, okay, well, what next? My husband, who is Russian, will probably not find a job in the nearest future in Ukraine, obviously. And I was a freelancer, and there was a lot of volunteering interpretation, and there was a lot of war-related interpreting that I had to do. But like I felt, well, that can be a choice. That can be something that I can do, or we can do something else. We can just I can basically minimize our spending right now, lay low, earn a little bit on with my freelancing, volunteer a lot, or I can go elsewhere, find a job, and basically be sitting where I'm safe, where nothing is falling on my head, no explosives are falling on my head anymore, and I can earn some money and I can send donations. Basically, I can send money back home. So I felt that was a more productive.
Yeah, and by no means do I want to say it's been easy, but with other Ukrainians who, I mean, you've got, I mean, you know, several different languages. I mean, having that language skill
Not
and
German, unfortunately. I have to
part,
learn it
you have to
from
learn German.
scratch
Okay.
now.
Well, I think you
Yeah,
will learn it very quickly. You're very adept. So,
yeah,
but you're somewhat flexible. I mean, you're well traveled. I mean, you have
yeah.
traveled the globe. You know what to expect. Whereas some people who have, you know, been in Ukraine the entire lives in these villages, and you know, you hear stories about they don't have
Yeah,
anywhere else
I'm
to
very
go.
privileged about that. Yeah, with that. Yeah, yeah, people. I mean, I cannot even imagine how it is for some people who have
Yeah. So
lost.
you have a unique skill set that allows you and the comfort and the confidence to be able to do that. So I think
Well, I'm also autistic to counterbalance that, which means, and my husband is as well, so which makes any kind of change for both of us a nightmare. So, but
so how have you
it's
been
okay.
able so
It's okay.
what's been your how do you cope with that? I mean, or I guess recognize the fact that that's an issue, but how do you push yourself over that out of
I'm
that comfort
pretty
zone?
lucky because I can work from home. I don't have to go to the office every day, and which is very, very good for my condition. It's still a little bit overwhelming because I've always stuck to my freelance style in the past, but now it's a full-time job, so it's still a little bit too much.
Ukrainians, the war, and you're a war refugee. That's your status. You're still wanting to work. You're still wanting to contribute. So, how did you go about finding work, finding something to do where you're at now?
Well, I'm pretty lucky in this regard as well because, like, I've been a freelancer interpreter for a while, and during those years, many people wanted to hire me full time and said, like, maybe you want to come work with us. And I'm like, nah, thanks, but I kind of like my freelancing style. I kind of like having a lot of free time. But now I've kind of wrote to all of them and said, well, you know, guys, maybe now is the time. So if you hear about any openings, and there've been a couple of options, and like basically pretty much I was very, very lucky to land a good job pretty fast.
Good. We're glad for that.
Yeah.
I guess some final notes as we kind of wrap up here. I mean, we could talk for a long time. So, for Americans and for others who have not been through this, I don't I don't think there's a you know you can give advice, but I guess kind of give you know give your experience on what it's been like, and I guess how you have tried to. I guess you're a very positive person. I guess that's what I'm leading to is like one way that you've been kind of to cope with this has been you still maintain been very positive, somewhat upbeat, but I'm sure there have been some down periods for you.
I mean, we all, you know, smile and we say hello and thank you because we are guests here. As like we Ukrainians talk among each other, and we see that we are pretty much on the same page. That we are guests here, so people are very nice to us. People are amazingly generous to us. It's like to the point that I don't know how I will ever be able to pay back for it. But so you have to smile and you have to be, and you are thankful. But like there is like a deep black hole of sadness that is the background of it all. Whatever you do, there's like that's not home. So basically, I guess whenever I get sad, I just like I don't know, I go ahead and I donate money. I guess I send home money for the good initiatives. I send the money to the army. I send the money to the friends who have lost their jobs and don't know what to do next. And I try to do something productive because you know, it's not like there is some abstract army that is going to do it for us. And that's the army is our people. It's everybody's husbands, brothers, friends, and it's like it's a big national wide effort. It's so you have to contribute, otherwise, like why?
I, I take it you want to go. You'll go back.
I
You'll
want
go.
to go back when we win, and there is a stage when the whole world comes back to rebuild it all, and I feel that it's going to be a big get together, and there will be lots of volunteers to come and see who those badass Ukrainians are. They will want to see it with their own eyes and probably help in the rebuilding effort. because I mean, it's probably a good feeling to be able to contribute to that. So I kind of feel that a lot of people will be coming, and then I will want to go and translate for all of them and also rebuild. I want to rebuild. Yeah.
Olga, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. My guest is Olga Kostina. You want me to start? I said
No
it wrong.
problem. Wrong stress, but it's all right.
Kostina, right? Okay. All
Nailed
right.
it.
All right. Let me start over. All right. 3, 2, 1. Kostina. There we go. I went through all this practicing. All right.